We're back, we're live, we're ThinkTech Talks. We're talking about portraits of Lanai, as we do on Wednesdays at 2 p.m., make that 3 p.m. And we're talking today about mental health in Lanai, with, of course, our host in Lanai, Alberta DeJetley, who is a farmer, a journalist, and a lady about town in Lanai City, and her guest, Greg Sanders, who is a psychologist for the Department of Education in Lanai, specializing in learning disabilities. Nice to have you back, Alberta. Nice to have you back. Nice to have you on the show, Greg.
Nice to be here.
Thanks, Dave. This has been a very stressful day, so finding Dr. Greg, I was able to get my mind readjusted. He very graciously agreed to be on the show at the last minute, as the previous guest had an unexpected delay.
Welcome to the land of live video and radio.
So here we are. So Dr. Greg's been living on Lanai for a few years, so I'm going to let him tell us, Dr. Greg, I've known you, it seems, forever. How long actually have you lived on Lanai now?
We have been here about 12 and a half years. And previous, we were on Maui, working over there.
Did you work for, I know you work for the DOE as he's a behavior health specialist working at the school. So did you do that on Maui also?
Yeah, back then it was through the Department of Health, and we worked for Aloha House. We were running day treatment centers and going around to the schools, servicing the kids, but it was as an outside provider. Mm-hmm. And this was back in the days of the Felix Consent Decree, when Hawaii was under federal oversight. So we were under contracts, and then things shifted back to the state as the feds were pulling out, and we wound up over here.
Dr. Sherry, your wife, also works at school. So is it unusual for a school our size to have two doctors on their staff?
That's what we hear. When the contracts were shifting around, we were looking for places to go, and they said, go interview at the schools. And we had been on Maui for a few years and decided that we wanted something smaller. So the folks here on Lanai had never had the on-island livable board mental health of any kind. Everything was coming from Maui or Oahu. And for the school to meet the new federal guidelines for under Felix, they were not going to make it with people coming from off island. There's too much delay. So when we came over here to interview with Ernst Myers, who was the principal, he was kind of discouraged because nobody had accepted the job, and we were the first people that said, wow, this is cool. We like this little place, this little island is nice. And one school, K through 12, all the kids are right there. And so we accepted the jobs, and then we had to find someplace to live, because there was nothing available.
There's still nothing
There's
available.
still nothing available. So he pulled a bunch of strings and got us a place. And the company actually had to move people out of the house so that we could rent the place. And that was, 12 and a half years ago. I've been here ever since.
Is this the same home that you're in now on Lanai Avenue?
Yeah, there's no place else to move.
Wow. They live in a really cute, as the plantation was changing and Council and COOKE was tearing down old houses, they replaced them with plantation houses new houses with a plantation flair. So these are really, really cute. They look old, but they're totally modern on the inside. And Dr. Greg, you've got a fabulous garden at your house. So how did being at school and being that there's two of you here, do we really have that many children that need your services?
Well, we do. Actually, the original question was, how do we wind up with two psychologists over here? Purely by accident. We just happened to be married to each other. But when we first moved over here, the state had assigned 5 positions. There was, counselors and social workers and psychological testing, and all this stuff had to be done. So we took the 5 positions and divided it up between the 2 of us. So I do all the, cognitive testing and stuff like that, and then handle counseling with the kids and the parents, and then Sherry does all the clinical assessments and the counseling with the other half of the kids and the parents. And we, like everybody else around here, we rope people in to help us. And so we found that there was a lot of need. There's a lot of need in every school, and most of the schools aren't getting addressed the way that we can over here. And we have the added benefit of being able to follow kids from kindergarten right through graduation and into adulthood. So the kids that are graduating this year were in kindergarten when we first came. So we've known these guys all the way through.
And you're probably going to get their children.
Oh, yeah, we already have. The kids that were in high school when we first got here now bring us their kids.
Oh, wow, that's really great. When I first moved back to Lanai, it was 1996, and I think it was 2003. My grandchildren came from the East Coast to Lanai School for a few months. And because of this transition that their parents were making, my son was in the Marine Corps, and they were moving to Maui, but they were able to come to Lanai to live with me during the temporary, while everybody was moving around. And your services were unbelievable because both of my grandsons, we wanted to make sure that they stayed mentally healthy and they weren't missing their parents. So Dr. Sherry was just wonderful. She assessed them when they came in and kept track of them in school to make sure that they made the adjustment with their southern accents. And they just did really well. And yes. I think it's not just seeing kids who have mental issues. It's overall just behavior issues that are impacted that we might not even think about.
Just growing up in the world today is enough.
Yeah, but both boys really enjoyed their time being at Lanai School, and I really think it was thanks to you and Dr. Sherry that it went so smoothly.
Good. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, my own son graduated from the school here.
Yeah, so when you look at our school, are there any time that you thought we could have done better, or we could have made it better, or?
Well, yeah, and we've been on a growth curve for quite a while. When Sherry and I first moved over here, Lanai High and Elementary School was behind on everything. They were 6 months behind on their assessments that are required by law. It was a mess. So within the first 2 years of organizing the counselors and the teachers and getting everything going here, we were meeting 100% compliance, which some of the schools in Maui haven't, that quickly anyway. And then over the years, with the developing of, trying to respond to No Child Left Behind, and then now it's Common Core and all this stuff. So we work as part of the team with the teachers, and we've encouraged all the schools that have behavior health programs to do that, work with the teachers as part of the team. And, there's a lot of kids with English as a second language, learning disabilities, all sorts of stuff that needs to be addressed if the whole school is going to advance.
Yeah, in addition to working at the school, Dr. Greg has just been so gracious about writing articles for Lanai Today, and every month when we're in deadline and I ask him for his article, I can't wait to read what he's written. So I brought a few issues with me, and it always seems as if whatever it is I'm thinking about or just wondering about, somehow or another, I never ask him to write about a particular subject, but he always manages to find just the right topic for us. In our March issue, you wrote about inclusion because you had a letter from a parent about their child being, mainstreamed. I know in the past they try to keep kids in special ed classes and smaller groups, and now they're moving toward mainstreaming back into the classroom. How does that work?
Well, nationwide, there's a trend towards taking kids out of the resource placements, which are like usually small classrooms, a few students, one teacher, and the kids have specific needs, and they need the curriculum presented in a different way. But it's expensive, so a lot of the schools are saying, well, if we use inclusion, which is another model of special education, you have a special education teacher or an educational assistant in the classroom in the general ed setting with a general ed teacher. Now, some of the research says that's a good thing because it socializes the kids all at the same level, and the kids with the learning disabilities or whatever are not separated, and they don't feel separated from the other population. That's great. But some of the kids have some real severe learning problems and maybe some behavioral issues too that singles them out anyway and makes it worse in the general ed setting. So it's a delicate balance, and it requires a lot of teamwork to make it happen.
Well, I was going to ask you, Doctor, here we have Lanai, and there's no other place in these islands, maybe no other place in the world. Lanai is the Garden of Eden. That's what Alberta tells me all the time. And it's sort of the perfect environment. It's this open space. There's personal attention. There's a kindness in Lanai that you don't find really anywhere else. A real community of kindness. You can quote me on that. So how in the world could you have these, tell me if I'm using the wrong word, but disorders, learning disabilities are disorders. Wouldn't, the sweetness of the place take care of anything like that? I'm just wondering if this is better or worse than what we have in the big city, the inner city, so to speak, in Honolulu.
Well, I agree. This is the nicest place I've ever lived. I grew up in LA.
I'm so sorry to hear that, by the way.
Yeah. The folks over here have a real sense of community. Most of the people are related in some way. And people who move here from the mainland particularly have to get used to the sense of community. It's kind of intimidating at first. And I get asked that question all the time, how could there be any mental health problems over here? There are, for a lot of reasons. I mean, statistically speaking, the general population is going to have so many depressed people, so many psychotic people, so many people with learning disabilities, etc. But there's also a lot of economic pressure over here. The boom and bust cycle on this island is really pronounced compared to some of the bigger islands and bigger populations. If the company has a bad year, everybody feels it. And if things are booming, there's a lot of pressure there too, because suddenly everybody's getting a lot of pressure to get jobs done and things like that. Mm-hmm. So that trickles on through to the kids in the population. And, we'll have kids just burst into tears in the middle of a class and the teacher can't figure out what's going on. So rather than have the kid just sit there and suffer, they can come up to see us. They don't have to be in special ed. They don't have to have a diagnosis. They don't have to have anything. They can just be a regular kid in trouble. And they come see us. And so part of what we're trying to do is early intervention and not wait for things to get exaggerated.
But it sounds like, as in all other places, problems, psychological problems with kids are really a reflection, an extension of the families at home. So goes the family, so goes the child. Anyway, I'm hoping that Alberta will ask you about that after the break. This is ThinkTech Talks. We're doing portraits of Lanai today. We're talking about mental health on Lanai. And our portrait is Dr. Greg Sanders, a psychologist in the Department of Education in Lanai. I'm Jay Fidel. We're here with our host. We join our host on Lanai, Alberta DeJetley, by Skype, and we are broadcasting from downtown Honolulu in Pioneer Plaza at the core of downtown. We'll be right back after this short break. Castle & Cooke, Hawaii. Investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state. Collateral Analytics. empowering the real estate industry to make better informed property investment decisions. The Foreign Trade Zone, bringing the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone programs to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. Galen Ho, a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company. Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island. The Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, incorporating diverse perspectives to design a flexible and forward-looking energy strategy. Hawaii Energy, the state's energy and efficiency program created to help Hawaii's residents and businesses adopt a clean energy lifestyle. Hawaii Gas, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future. Hawaii Pacific Health, bringing technology and teamwork together to transform healthcare in Hawaii. The High Tech Development Corporation, attached to DBED, is the state's leading technology agency. The SHIDLER Family Foundation, supporting educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech. We're back, we're live, we're at ThinkTech Talks, talking about portraits of Lanai. And our portrait today is the portrait of Greg Sanders, who is a psychologist with DOE in Lanai. We're calling the show Mental Health in Lanai. And Alberta DeJetley, our host in Lanai, is asking Dr. Sanders to tell us what kind of learning disabilities and other disorders he finds in the schools there and what the various causes and implications are. Take it away, Alberta, back to you.
You know, Greg, you're saying that you're broadcasting from downtown Honolulu, so I thought we should let our listening audience know where we are. We're at the Lanai Arts Center on Dole Square. And the Lanai Arts Center is a nonprofit organization that Dr. Greg and Dr. Sherry are very, very much involved in. Dr. Sherry's been serving as president.
Yeah, she's now the ex-president, but it's a hard thing to get away from, so she's still there.
Yeah, but later on in the show, if we have enough time, we're going to do a little plug for them, like this gorgeous t-shirt that they're doing as a fundraiser for the Lanai Fire Department, and these Easter eggs that they've had made here at the shop. But we'll talk about them later, because I wanted, you asked about families and how kids interact. I'd like Dr. Greg to talk about our foster care and what our foster care situation is on Lanai, because you'd say, oh, everybody here has a family. But a lot of families have to sometimes don't come in that door. A lot of families have to sometimes put their children into temporary care. Can you tell us a little bit about that? He wrote a wonderful article in our February issue about parents, the Ho'omau, it's Partners in Development, which is the foster care program in the state. So can you tell us about the foster care situation?
Well, yeah, I can tell it from our end of the thing. It kind of goes along with how could anybody have any troubles on Lanai? It's such a great place. People can have troubles anytime, any place, and for a lot of different reasons. And whatever the reasons are, if the kids get pulled out of a family by child welfare services, it's for a good reason. It's because we need to protect the kids. And it's traumatic. No matter what the reason that they're getting pulled out is, it's going to be traumatic for the kids. So foster care has always been a big issue over here. When we first came here for the first maybe 10 years we were here, we didn't have any foster families, trained foster placements here on the island. So the kids very often were being sent to Molokai or Maui or maybe institutions over in Oahu. And it creates an extra burden on the family and everybody else. So we put a push on to get some families certified as foster homes here on Lanai, and it's relieved some of the burden. It has the extra added complication that if there's no contact orders or restraining orders, you're going to run into the folks out on the street all the time. And so the whole community at one point or another gets involved in these placement issues. So, you know, it's a good thing, bad thing. It swings back and forth. But the family home Lanai go through the same exact trials and traumas that everybody else does, any place else. Yeah, drugs and domestic violence and just hardships of one type or another. It's the same here as everywhere else.
One of my friends had her children in temporary foster care, and one of the advantages of them being able to stay on Lanai was that on the weekends she was able to see them, and you know, the school's right there in the middle of town. It wasn't as if she wasn't able to see her children at all, and for her it really helped her a lot to get her life back into order so her family could be together again. Because I think it's always a hardship when parents are separated from their families, and when they have to go to Molokai, which is impossible to get to from Lanai now.
Right.
It's next to impossible. Yeah, there's no air service.
Right.
The ferry service between the islands, Lanai and Molokai, is non-existent. So it really is helpful, and I just thank God for all of the people who service foster parents on Lanai.
Yeah, we're lucky. We've got 2 or 3 placements now that are right here on the island and in town. And our next biggest issue is going to be drug and alcohol treatment in a residential setting. Right now, it's going to be either Oahu or Maui. We don't have anything here.
Do you see anything happening with maybe a teenage group home sometime in the future?
Well, people have suggested that, and it would present the same kind of problems, only magnified, because you've got a small community where everybody knows everybody, and if you're talking about a group home, if it's kids that are local, it's going to have all sorts of implications for no contact and temporary restraining orders and things like that. If it's kids coming from off island to a placement, that might actually work better. Because the kids here are really accepting and really friendly towards other kids, and you know, I'd probably be very helpful to anchor kids off island.
You know, I've always envisioned having a group home where the children can work in a farm setting with farm animals, with horses and dogs and cats, and just being outdoors is, for me, always so therapeutic, instead of being confined to an apartment or one home. So I always thought it would be a wonderful place for teenagers, just to get away from their parents.
Well, I mean, you know, one thing we noticed when we moved over here is that Lanai has always been sort of an informal placement setting for families. We get a lot of kids coming over to live with grandpa, aunts, uncles, whoever, because they're having troubles in Oahu or the Big Island or something, you know. So I think folks over here are kind of used to it. The problem is the tiny little houses. It's very crowded over here.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. You know, you told me that you and Dr. Sherry both teach college level classes. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, we have been faculty for Argosy University for 13, 14 years now in their graduate school of psychology. So we teach graduate master's level programs on the different islands. So we fly around, we go to Maui and Oahu and sometimes Hilo, each cohorts of graduate students. So a lot of the mental health providers in Hawaii have been our students at one time or another.
They're going to be after your job on the night. You better watch out.
Everybody's fascinated with the idea of Maui coming to Lanai and living here. But then when they come over, they say, "Oh my God, aren't you bored?"
Whenever I see Dr. Greg outside of, you know, the work environment or right around in town in the art center, he spends a lot of time in the art center. And some of his work is on display here. Unfortunately, they're big and they're on the wall in back of us, so we can't really show them well. But I took a oil class from you. I'm going to step out of the frame because if I step out and move my chair, you can see one of the paintings. So let me just move shortly. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see the painting, Alberta.
Oh, good.
Okay.
So, Greg, can you tell us what it is and its origins?
What, you can't tell?
No, I can't see it very well from where I sit.
There's a couple of them back there. One is a lone surfer on the beach getting ready to take out the big waves. And then there's another one, kind of a couple in the distance standing on the beach with a roiling sea going on there. Yeah, I noticed when I moved to Maui, I couldn't stop painting. You sort of have to paint when you're over here. You can't resist the colors and the nature and everything.
Do you have an inner meaning, a secret meaning or a point that you make in these paintings?
No, they're just what they are.
Okay. Alberta, come back to the table so that you don't pick up the noise from the crowd there. Yeah, I have a couple of questions I want to pose to Greg here just before the second break of the show. You know, one is you mentioned that in a small island where everybody knows each other, that it's hard to keep things secret. And I wonder, and you said that might exacerbate, a problem that wouldn't be so much of a problem if it could be kept secret. And I wonder just how that works. I mean, wouldn't a small island, say the Garden of Eden there, be supportive to somebody who had a problem rather than demote him on the social scale because he had a problem that somehow got out and was not secret anymore? I just wonder how that works in the sociology and the psychology of a small island where everybody knows everybody else's business.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. We have family court over here on Thursdays, and our courthouse is in a little tiny room in the Dole. In the old Dole administration building. People stand out in the parking lot waiting for their turn to go into court. And there's sort of an unspoken rule. I think it's unspoken. I've never heard it spoken. That you just don't talk about while you're there.
Yeah, you're not going to go around and socialize when everybody's outside. And you never ever go to the post office and say, "Hey, I saw you at court today." It's just not fun. You just mind your own business and keep to yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to respect the other guy's privacy.
Sherry and I wondered about that when we first moved over here because we came from California, which is the land of paranoia, and our people, and everybody here would, just sort of stop you on the street and say, "Oh, my kid forgot to take his meds" or something, and I'll say, "Okay, well, stop by the office, will you?" But after a while, you just kind of get used to it. But most people are pretty respectful,
The other thing I wanted to ask you before the break is the thing about argosy. That's really interesting. And indeed, in the world of online education, we certainly have a lot of online schools in the state. A lot of them have offices or, small campuses, to use that term, here in downtown Honolulu. But theoretically, it sounds like somebody could be in Lanai and have contact with you and I suppose your wife and take courses in psychology, even get a degree in psychology. Is anyone doing that? I mean, got people going to college online through Argosy or otherwise in Lanai?
Yeah, our teachers, in fact, we have a number of teachers right now working on master's degrees in education or one thing or another online from Lanai to various schools. There's a lot of them. The Argosy program we work for, we do the on-campus classes because we teach a lot of clinical skills and stuff like that they can't do very well online. But yeah, we have a little tiny campus here for Maui Community College, and the kids do Skybridge and they do all sorts of modes of education. So yeah, you can do all undergrad, graduate, all sorts of stuff.
That's great that you do that as well as your practice for DOE. I mean, it's the old story, isn't it, Alberta, that on the neighbor islands, you can't do just one thing. You have to be a jack of many trades. That's the way the culture works. Look at you, for example, a journalist, a farmer, and also a lady about town, all at the same time.
I don't know about this lady about town thing.
It's my term, sorry.
Major publisher of newspapers. So.
That was one of my favorite writers.
Anyway, we'll take a short break just for a minute. That's Alberta DeGently, our host in Lanai, and her guest, Greg Sanders, who's a psychologist with DOE there. We're talking about mental health in Lanai in our series called Portraits of Lanai here on ThinkTech. We'll be right back after this short break. I'm Jay Fidel. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii.
We'll
see you. We're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidel here on ThinkTech Talks. We're talking about portraits of Lanai, and our portrait this afternoon is the portrait of Dr. Greg Sanders, a psychologist with the Department of Education in Lanai. And our host in Lanai, of course, as always, is Alberta DeGently, who is a journalist and a farmer. Take it away, Alberta. All yours.
You can say it. Lady about town.
Okay, lady about town. Sorry.
Okay. One of my favorite stories about that Dr. Greg wrote several years ago is he actually carved a wooden tiki, Polynesian tiki, right here at the Art Center with Brandon Alvigalio. Brandon has since moved on to Oahu, but when they were here, they had a lot of activity in the wood shop. But tell us about what happened to your tiki.
Well, it was one of those Lanai moments. I'm not the superstitious type. We have a saying around my house that my wife believes in everything and I don't believe in anything. But I carved this Amakua type tiki in honor of my 90-year-old neighbor who had helped me with my garden for years, and he had just died. So part of the garden I set aside, the neighbors call it my heiau, but it's a part of the garden. And then I stuck this about 6 foot tall log in there and carved a likeness of Nelson Makchu. And, I'm surrounded with some rocks, and, it's just part of the garden. And one day I went out to get in the car or something and, walked past it and didn't really think anything of it. And my wife was standing on the patio and said, "Hey, where's the tiki?" And I went, "What?" And I looked, and the thing was gone. There was a circle of rocks. And so I had to leave before I think I was going to Oahu for the weekend to teach or something. And so I said, "Oh my God, all right, who would do such a thing on Lanai? Who could lift such a thing on Lanai?" So I had to go on my business trip, and so Sherry was going off her way too, and we thought, well, we'll just wait and see what happens. And I got a call the next day from Sherry, who said that somebody had spotted the tiki sitting at a picnic table by one of the gift shops downtown in the morning. How it got there, I have no idea, but Nelson, who is the spirit behind the Amakua, was the gardener for that particular place. So I just figured maybe he went walking around to check on his accounts or something. But nobody did ever own up to it. Nobody has ever copped to it or let him even a hint, which is hard to do on Lanai.
Yeah, how heavy is it? It's big.
Heavy enough, yeah. So I figured it must have just walked off by itself.
Yeah, Nelson Motu grew up at Waipio Valley on the Big Island, and his family raised taro there, and then they moved to Lanai back in the 20s or 1930s.
He was 1959. He moved over here, and he was the custodian at the school for 20 years.
Ah, okay.
And retired, and then he started his own lawn business. So by the time I got to him, he was 80-something years old, and he insisted on doing my lawn. So I said, okay, go ahead, do it. And he did. 3 days before he died, he was out in my yard picking weeds.
That's a nice, healthy, active lifestyle. You know, another thing that you do is you ride quads with Pierce Myers, our former principal, retired school principal. Tell us about that.
Well, this is another reason I like to live on Lanai. I can ride my quad right out my backyard and be out in the wilderness immediately. I don't have to trailer it or anything. But the ride she's referring to with Pierce was at night, and I missed a turn in the road.
Getting lost on Lanai?
I did an aerial dismount. It was quite spectacular.
You had on a helmet?
I had on a helmet,
Oh,
but
okay.
I landed on my wrist, so I was out of action for a while. Survived.
We're going to take one last break, if you don't mind. But before we do, I just want to ask you, you're a psychologist that took some years in school. Your wife is also a psychologist that took some years in school. Is this a permanent position for you with DOE? And for her on Lanai?
Yeah, oddly enough, we're not going anywhere, but yeah, we're both going to stay here until such time as we don't want to do it anymore.
You like doing it.
Tired here, right?
Well, we keep talking about that. What is this retirement business? I don't know if I could ever retire permanently, but
You could take private clients.
yeah, we do. Actually, we have an office in our house, and Sherry does the marriage and family therapy in our house for people who are not attached to the school. But we see everybody at the school for free. So.
Well, we're going to take one last short break. When we come back, I know you're going to close, Alberta, and I'd just like to throw one question for your consideration, and that is, does Lanai need more resources to deal with the issues you're dealing with, Dr. Saunders? Is everything fine in terms of funding, personnel, resources, what have you? Or would you like to see more of any of those? We'll take a short break. This is ThinkTech Talks. We're talking about mental health in Lanai with Alberta DeJetley, our host in Lanai, and her guest, Dr. Greg Sanders. We'll be right back. Aloha, I'm Jay Fidel. This is ThinkTech Hawaii, broadcasting live from the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. We raise public awareness about tech, energy, and globalism in Hawaii. Technology is critical to our state. A vibrant tech sector will give us new prospects in the global marketplace and will offer great careers and make our economy more resilient. Streaming live on Ustream and Spreaker, ThinkTech allows its hosts and guests invaluable opportunities to report important events and discuss important questions, and to be heard here in Hawaii and around the world. You can find links to our live streams on thinktechhawaii.com or on our mobile website, m.thinktechhawaii.com. And you can see our archive on YouTube. It's all just a click away. We want to do whatever we can to keep Hawaii relevant, connected, and thriving in the complexity of the 21st century. We hope you will help us in those efforts. Tune in today. This is ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidel. Okay, in for the last lap, ThinkTech Talks, Portraits of Lanai, a study of mental health in Lanai with Alberta DeJetley, our host in Lanai, and Dr. Greg Sanders, who is a psychologist with the Department of Education. They join us by Skype, and we in turn broadcast from Pioneer Plaza at the core of downtown Honolulu. Okay, this is your last 10 minutes over here, Alberta. Go for it.
Well, Jay, you asked us about resources. You know, Lanai has been very, very fortunate in that Paloma Lanai now is extending its services and funding for a whole lot of different programs. I don't know if they've got any plans to do funding for more mental health services, but we do appreciate all of the services that they are providing for us now. They just hired a film person to do film at school.
Mm-hmm.
They hired Matt Glickstein to teach music at school.
Okay, good.
So Matt was on our program previously, so it's really exciting to have both Anthony Pacheco for film and Matt Glickstein for music.
Yeah,
And
that was a good show, too.
really, really good. And Dr. Sanders, Greg, what do you think? Do you need more resources or more help, or what do you need?
Well, you know, the big thing with when you're talking about the state itself, they're stretched anyway on all the islands, but services like speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, things like that always have to come from off island because you really can't afford a full-time position over here. Psychiatry is our biggest bugaboo in my particular office because I'm always referring kids out for medical evaluations for various kinds of meds that relate to going to school. And getting psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry is tricky everywhere. So we have some contracts with Department of Health where we can do Skype, just like this, in my office with a friend of mine over in Oahu, Dave Roth, who's a psychiatrist. And so some of the kids we have covered under Department of Health come into my office with their moms or whoever. We do a session right in the office via computer. But if I need assessments or I need, more critical care, I need to send somebody out for treatment, somebody's suicidal or self-harming or whatever, they wind up having to leave the island, and that's a big process. We have to get them to the emergency room, then we have to wait for the plane or somebody to come and get them. And I've sat with suicidal kids for 24 hours, over at the hospital here, our little hospital, and they've got IDs and everything. We're waiting and waiting. And so, that's a problem. So if we had child and adolescent psychiatry more available on island, even if it was a couple days a week, that would be a big improvement. Then right now that's our biggest crying need. Pretty much everybody else comes from off island on a regular schedule.
Well, thank goodness we have expeditions, because without expeditions, it would really be a problem.
Right.
So the services that they provide for us have been really, really beneficial to the community. So we've talked about your art, and we've talked about your wood carving. What about your music? What about your music? Because he plays jazz with Pierce Myers.
Yeah, Pierce is the piano player, and I'm the sax player, and we like to say we have the best jazz band on Lanai. It turns out we're the
It's
only.
just another form of therapy,
The one and only jazz band.
Yeah. So we get away with anything we want, basically. But Jerry and I like to say, about living on Lanai, you can do anything you want over here, as long as you're willing to do it all. So, you can start up any program, start up any band, start up anything you want, as long as you're willing to do it all.
One other thing that Dr. Sherry does is she has a Sunday beading class. Like, this is an example of some of the work that they do. And every Sunday afternoon, a little group of ladies, I think 4 or 5 of them.
4 or 5, yeah.
They come in and they do these beadings, and they do it for the art center, because nonprofits really have a hard time getting enough funding. And
it's for the kids' art program for the most part.
the kids' art program is just wonderful, and they do things like this Lanai Smelting Pot, the Lanai Art Center cookbook, But all of their things can be found at lanaiart.org. So you can go online and get more information about them and some of the great things that they do. But they do classes, they bring in artists to teach workshops, they have cleaning supplies, they have a great after-school program.
Yeah, that was something Sherry took on as a pet project years ago. Was twice a week the kids come running over from the school over here and do art for a couple hours, right after school. Very popular.
We even have a pottery barn with, it's a building with a, Fujimoto has been there forever. Her husband is retired dentist on Lanai.
Yeah.
So she's been here, I mean, he was my dentist when I was growing up. That's how long they've been here. And I won't tell you how old I am. But their building is really interesting because it used to be a store. And the workshop that they use is lined with tin because they stored rice in it. And the tin walls kept the mice out. Did you know that?
They're keeping them out now.
Well, yeah, because the floor is full of holes now.
Yeah, we could use a little patching around here.
So could the university in Manoa. It's not a problem.
Yeah, but these buildings have a lot of character and they might have termites in them now, but like this art gallery, it's gone through several renovations and it still needs some more work done, but it's a wonderful old building. What used to be here before? Do you remember?
There was a store here.
Was this
Years
wasn't
and years
Morris.
ago.
Morris was at the local gentry. I can't remember what was here before. But it's been used for arts since about 1984, 85.
Yeah. And then the company started funding it, and then the company stopped funding it. It's been running on its own now for a number of years.
Maybe this funding will be improved, over time. And it sounds like Lanai is in a kind of transition with Larry Ellison, and there are, new values about supporting the community, new ways of looking at things, and maybe there'll be more of that, more of these, creative opportunities. I think make for better public health, and I wonder if you see any of that yet, or whether you see the expectancy of it to come. Am I right in thinking that the transition will be a good thing for public health?
Yeah, I think so. Well, they played it right so far. First thing they did when the Ellison group took over was they opened the swimming pool down the street. It had been closed for a number of years, and the kids immediately ran down there to jump in the swimming pool. And then they started redecorating the town square and painting, putting some paint on some buildings. And that, you can see that it's lifting people's spirits. And, the promise of employment after a long dry spell, that lifts people's spirits too.
What do you think, Alberta?
Well, I know the swimming pool being open is wonderful because it created a job opportunity for my grandson. He is still working for Four Seasons down at the hotel as a security officer, along with Dr. Greg's son, Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
But now a position became available for a full-time lifeguard at the community pool. So my grandson is doing that too now. So it's really nice. There's lots and lots of job opportunities, but people need to acquire job skills, have some job skills that they can bring to the table.
Yeah, we're working on that at the school, trying to build up the shop program and the auto program and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
so I think it's a career readiness program, so
Yeah.
that you can get out of college, get out of high school, and step into a job with a little bit more than just entry-level training.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
Yeah, transitions, offer stress, of course, as you mentioned earlier, but they also offer hope and the prospect of a better time, and that's always a good thing. And I feel, from my discussions with Alberta and her guests, I feel that is surely in the offing. Anyway, Alberta, thank you so much. And Dr. Greg Sanders, a psychologist, at the Department of Education. Thank you so much for coming on short notice. Alberta and I truly, sincerely, to the bottom of our being, we appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it too, Albert.
When I asked Dr. Greg if he'd like to be on the show, he just looked at me and he said, "Do I have to change my shirt?" And I told him he could stay in his t-shirt, but he went home and put on an aloha shirt. But thank you so much for helping us out.
Thank you both. This has been ThinkTech Talks on Portraits of Lanai, talking about mental health in Lanai with Alberta DeJetley and Greg Sanders. Thank you so much. Aloha, you both.
Aloha, Greg. Thank you.